Now, let's deep dive into this big LGBTQ story for today. I am Dr. Edward Summers, and let's queer up the U.S. view. 266,000 LGBTQ youth have fled states and moved over fear in politics. A new study by the Trevor Project and Movement Advancement Project reveals that 266,000 queer youth have fled states with anti-LGBTQ policies. The research found that 68% of transgendered and non-binary youth in such states considered moving, and 18% already have, to access healthcare. Study author Steven H. called it heartbreaking that so many young people feel forced to relocate. But the report also highlights hope. Queer youth in states with inclusive policies have reported better well-being. Logan Casey of MAP noted that while at least 18 states passed anti-LGBTQ laws in 2024, 13 states enacted pro-LGBTQ policies. The author urged lawmakers to support inclusive policies, saying they lead to safer and happier lives for LGBTQ youth. The study underscores how state policies shape young people's futures, making legislative action crucial. Florida is one of the states that is attacking LGBTQ youth in book bans, Don't Say Gay, LGBTQ vital healthcare. It's very easy to harp on the negative here, right? Mm-hmm. But let's harp on the positive, right? That there are states out there that are fighting against, conservative policies, that are protecting our young people, that are welcoming us into their states, that are welcoming our youth into their states and saying, come here, come and get your gender affirming care, come and be supported, And so I want to focus and harness on the positive here, because every time we report the news, it's always dark and gloomy. And, I'm taking it from Buddy here, who always talks about, let's focus on the positive. So there is some positivity in this, in this story. We can talk about the negative. We can talk about the fact that, these policies impact so few people, right? And we could go and ask the question, why? Why are we targeting less than 1%, 0.1% of a population, right? It's spewed in hate, right? It's spewed in homophobia, right? And so it's unfortunate. But again, the bright side is that there are states out there who are saying, screw you, to states like Florida, and they are really, welcoming us into their state and saying, come here and get the services that you need, get the care that you need.
Right.
As an anecdote, one of our major youth at Pride Lines, who has been a part of the family, she's interned with us as well, left Florida recently to go to New York. And we told her it was a bad idea, but she just felt like she just wanted a different experience. She wanted another start, a fresh start. And so she's up in New York, and of course my family loves her, and so they're like, we'll do whatever for this particular youth. But it's a shame that we're losing talented young people who has so much potential, who just feels tired.
When I think about, I don't know, I feel in both sides of the argument here, because yes, I mean, if people start moving, if the people that fought at Stonewall, back then, even in New York, in a liberal state that probably wasn't as liberal back then, left and moved somewhere to Canada, I don't know what would have happened to the movement. People, I know people need to fight, and I know it sounds good on paper, but by the same token, it's your life, it's your individual life. And, and I do feel for particularly trans youth, especially in the current times, with the situation we're living, where, it's basically, it's anywhere you go, many of these red states where your life is going to be miserable. So I could understand why a trans youth person wants to, leave Florida or Texas or Alabama or, these red states that are making their life impossible.
Well, I'm sorry. The reality, from my perspective, hearing all this information, is that it's not just, I'm very excited to see that people are being proactive with their lives. I'm 60, for God's sakes, and there have been points where I've been like, F this, it's time to make a new chapter. But at the same time, we've had a lot of negatives with the politics. We're only in 1 month of the new presidency, and it's knocked the wind out of me more than one time. And I know of people who are literally leaving the country, and I'm jealous that they have the luxury to be able to do so because their careers allow them to, and they can financially afford it, and they can sell what they want and keep what they want. That's a blessing and a luxury, and I love that for them. But at the same time, if we don't sit here and make the plans to sit here now, damn it, I've been here 25 years. How dare you push me out of my own city, my own state, my own community? So there's got to be a balance where once we get through the grief and once we get through the drama and a little therapy along the way, we need to come together and we need to sit there and say, how do we do this so that those of us that can't or choose to stay can get through this?
Let me push your positive comment a little further.
Yeah.
That's more than 250,000 votes the next time to look forward to.
Well, not just 250,000 for those individuals, but their families.
Right.
And their friends.
Right.
And the people they influence.
Exactly. So.
I am in this country, moving out of a country where I thought was not possible for me to live an open gay life. That's the reason I'm in this country. So, and to be able to work openly and, as a gay man and all that. So I feel for people like that. I went through that when I was in my 20s, and I was looking for a place to be free and be happy and prosperous and all that. So yes, I do believe that there is a common goal and, a common fight. Totally agree with you. But when it's your life, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to survive. And that's what many of us that moved to this country with the idea that this was going to be the place now find it shocking that this is happening, because that wasn't the case when we moved here. So things have changed, unfortunately.
So I was digging deep a little bit more into the study beyond what I reported, and one of the big things that was cited by young people was that it's about the mental and emotional toll that they were experiencing. So while it's great that states are doing this, but for the young people, they didn't really want to move.
Nope.
However, it's because it just was so daunting on them. And again, we're talking in terms of like trans youth who want to get various surgeries. I'll give you some statistics here, which is a shame that states like Florida and others are like passing these laws. But for puberty blockers, we're talking 0.01% of the population. For gender affirming care, we're talking 0.0021%. So we're talking small numbers, but nonetheless, that toll that's been waiting on them is the reasons why they're doing it. It's their lives, right? And like, yes, they're the potential votes, and we want people to stay in states like this because everybody like us who thought like us moved to more liberal states. Then what are we leaving in Florida, right? We're leaving just conservative people, and who's going to continue to pass conservative policies. However, the therapist in me is like, people have to do what's best for them emotionally and mentally. Otherwise, that could have a detrimental impact on them. And we talk about suicides, right? And the number, and one of the things that, and I know we're going to get to this in another story about, the sort of the president's, freezing, federal assets. One of the things that was reported and that was very alarming and concerning was people around the country, not just for LGBT community, but for communities in general, was worried about suicide hotlines that are funded by the federal government, and was worried that we're going to see an increase, right? So, when I think about this story, I do think about the fact that these young people are really, it's really about the mental well-being. And I'd rather them be here than not be here. So I'd rather that sacrifice.
Right.
But we can do both. We can support them to move and be healthy in their own space. But we can also build those communities and those assets and those partnerships and those allies locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
To support those who can't.
That's right. That's right.
And those that want to move back.
And then
Yes,
exactly
and
those that
welcome
do want to come back and move back.
To your point, buddy, I think, and you keep on raising this every time I'm on the show with you, is that we do need this summit. We do need to bring our community together. We need to pull our assets. We need to do that for our young people. We owe it to our community.
We need to do it for everybody.
For everyone. Yeah.
We need to backfill our youth. We need to remind them of our history. We need to remind them of our fights. We need to remind them of our blessings. We need to remind them of our positive abilities to change.
That's right.
But we also need to train our families and our friends and our bosses and our neighbors.
That's right.
And
we need to uplift and prepare those that are in takeover for us.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's what I mean by
Right?
privilege.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
we have to.
But we also need to take care of our seniors. I mean, we need to start building communities where we have
Yes.
same-sex retirement communities, and we need to,
absolutely.
life. There's more to life than stereotypic Hollywood,
That's right.
Golden Girls and bars.
That's right.
And I
We
agree
need
with
to represent that.
that point. I think, what you said touched on something I've been thinking about. There's a lot of things to be said about looking at the demographics of different generations. And you look at the reaction of our more, up and coming young adult generations who are choosing to leave, and that might be generational in terms of, they want, and I'm not being critical at all, but instant, they want to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Where someone like myself, a tail end baby boomer, we were taught tough it out, ride it out. And I was a little spoiled. I mean, I grew up in the greater New York area. And even though I was in a rural suburb of New Jersey, I got closer and closer as I went on to college and everything. And I was outside of New York for most of my adulthood until moving down here.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, we also need to look out not only for our young people and everyone in between, but our seniors. My involvement, looking at the west side of Wilton Manors, and I won't talk about this a long time, but a future topic is that I've seen where people say, oh, we don't need any more nursing homes or assisted living. But, one of the statistics being in healthcare for many years in human resources is that, 1/5, it might have changed and be higher now, but 1/5 of our population by the year 2030, if I have that right, will be over 65.
Right.
So we have to look at that within our own numbers, be supportive, and revere our seniors. I look at the story we did before about the powwow, and the Indian culture, very much indigenous people celebrate the wisdom and
Elders.
their elders, and we need to
And
do that
Florida.
within our community and celebrate them, not shun them.
And Florida is a state where a lot of people move to retire. Not only gay, I mean, all across everybody. So with that, a lot of people, LGBTQ people are going to be moving to Florida for the weather for many reasons. So yes, we need to protect. I'm afraid that all these measures may be tempted to create, terror and panic in the community.
But that's important to point out is that, politics always is about dividing and conquering.
Right.
Politics is always about scapegoating, and it's always easiest to go after the smallest population, the weakest population. It could be mental health, it could be Italians, it could be Jews, it could be gays. It's always about that little group that is insignificant to that politician.
Wow.
To say you are better than these.
Well, you look at the leadership we're talking about, that's smoke
that's
and
where we
mirrors
are
and
today.
deflection,
And
they're picking on the weaker populations or how they perceive, and we need to come together.
And it comes down to smoke and mirrors, because they're alerting, importance to something that's important to us, while on the backside, they're changing something completely different that has absolutely nothing to do with what they've got us all in up arms
And it's a
over.
money grab too, because what little money is being spent on these health confirming issues means nothing in the scheme of the American budget of the government.
It's a distraction, right?
It is.
It's a distraction to always focus on the
Smoke and
minority
mirrors.
or elite. Smoke and mirrors, absolutely. I think the big takeaway, though, from this story is that while it's great that states are out there and welcoming our population, the big takeaway for me, at least, is that we still need the summit. We still need to come together. We still need to think about how we build our civic capacity in our own community here, because it's great for young people who have mental health issues or who have the weight of the world on their shoulder that they move into these states, but it's not really helpful to us living here who can't and who don't have the capacity. But in order for us to change things, we have to build our capacity here. We have to come together, right, as a community and stand for something together collectively.
What's the statement? If you don't stand for something, you fall for everything?
That's right.
Everything. That's right. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.